Mushoku Tensei Season 2 is interesting to say the least. There are two very large elephants in the room that we very much need to address. Animation and, I can't believe I'm saying this, erectile dysfunction.
Bruh.
Let's address the first one. People in my comments have been telling me that the animation had completely gone to shit, and that the entire show was utterly ruined, and that there's nothing we can do to save it. And what I'd like to say to that is, aren't you guys, exaggerating a tad bit? I mean, look, the animation has definitely dropped in quality, as Season 1 showed to us what unbeatable attention to detail and flawless action animation could do for the visual profile of a show. Season 2 is definitely not that, but is still better looking than the vast majority of shows airing today. The rustic and grainy Mushoku Tensei style that we know and love is still here and nowhere to go, and the commitment towards hand-drawn animation over 3D models is still put forth throughout this season. You can tell that there are many scenes throughout Season 2 that cut some corners, and would have been immaculately animated in Season 1, but that's okay. The overall animation during non-action sequences is still much better than most other shows. Take this scene for example. Rudy's movements are still animated to be very realistic and natural. His shakiness and urgency in his movements are well captured in his hand and body language. The movements of his pouch and leather strap move and fold in accordance to natural physics, as well as having realistic shadows casted by Rudy's hand. On the other hand, we haven't missed out completely on amazing action animation either. Although we aren't getting an eyegasm every scene like we did in the previous season, there's still a few scenes that need recognition. I mean, just take a look at this one. Just utterly gorgeous. Setting the scene are completely hand-drawn backgrounds and effects that are used to accentuate Rudy's speed. Wind effects are aggressively smeared across the screen as Rudy's character model begins as small and distant, but is quickly expanded into frame as if he's dashing towards the camera. The smearing throughout the sequence is super aggressive and has a particular style that is very attractive. The use of these inky, thick, and paintbrush-like strokes are super stylish and are used in these impact frames as well. Afterward, there's a neat little scene where Rudy and Sarah pop out of the water as if they burst out of a bubble. Although scenes like these are few and far between in the season, they are still good reminders that Studio Bind have not completely lost their original prowess, and that crucial moments in the story will not be left in the dust when it comes to their visuals. And we shouldn't be too upset about a drop in animation quality when the narrative of the season doesn't involve any high-stake action anyways. Which brings me to the topic of Season 2's story. Now, I understand that it's kinda ridiculous to praise/defend a show's story when an entire season revolves around the main character's erectile fucking dysfunction, but I'm gonna do exactly that. Spoiler warning from now on. Mushoku Tensei Season 2 is about Rudy facing his many difficult life experiences and growing up as a person. Troubles such as moving on from an ex that broke his heart, or trying to find new love only for it to turn to the worst due to his own irresponsible behavior, and meeting new people that he forms meaningful relationships with throughout his journey. These are all things that we, as people in the real world, have to deal with and experience in our lives, making the character writing here feel tangible and real. And even if you don't like Rudius as a character, which is completely understandable since he's a very flawed human being, the show still makes it possible to understand his struggles and empathize with the way he's feeling, even if it can induce large amounts of cringe and pain. Episode 3. Oh my god. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the pacing of the show. It's slow, and it's a peep into Rudius' life during his adolescent years. We see as he passes each day during his academy life, but it's kept interesting due to his unique position in the story. Someone who has already surpassed some of the greatest of magic users in this world, going to a school that teaches magic that he already knows, but is only there to seek answers and solutions to his seemingly trivial life issues. This kept me watching as a viewer, as his unique position created opportunities for many amusing events and dynamics with other characters to occur. His interactions with Zanoba, Sylphie, Elena Lees, Soldat, the two Beast Girls, and Nanahoshi are either really fucking funny or have dynamics that are super fresh and interesting. He forms many new relationships with people which all have a level of nuance that can be felt through their interactions. It's not black and white where it's just, oh, Rudius likes this person so they are good, or Rudius hates this person so they are bad. No, there's always more to it than that, and you can tell that Rudius has a unique opinion on every character. Okay, let's talk about episode 9. Up until this point, we are under the impression that Rudius had entered a world so vastly different from his own that we as the viewers subconsciously assume he is the only individual that has been transported to this world. Yes, we can throw guesses and make predictions, but the show throughout the entirety of its beginning gives little to no hints towards the idea of others being transported. until this episode, which I argue to be the most world-redefining episode in the entire series so far, which drastically alters the scope of the story. Up until this episode, Rudius is shown to be lackadaisically spending his days at the academy and minding his own business, which we the viewer have grown accustomed to. So we as the viewer are just as taken aback as Rudius when Nanahoshi makes her sudden appearance. We're intrigued to learn more, and the rest of the episode consists of one long conversation. Little to no music or anything to distract us from the words being said. I love how cleverly they portray this within the context of their language. Immediately after waking up from fainting, Rudius and Sylphie speak in the common language of their world, which is technically what they are speaking the entire show, but is shown as Japanese to the viewer, usually in order to simplify things. But in this scene, showing what they're actually saying sets up the scene perfectly. At first, we're slightly confused as to why they aren't showing the conversation in Japanese like they usually do, until this scene. Now it just all makes sense as to why the conversation was not shown in Japanese. It was all to lead up to this moment, where the sound of actual Japanese leaves Nanahoshi's mouth and pierces our ears as we begin to understand that this time, the Japanese they're speaking is actually Japanese, the one from the world we live in. As this brand new mystery unfolds in front of us, we begin asking questions. Who or what is transporting people into this world? Is it Man-God? Are there others who have been transported that we just don't know about? Is Orsted involved in all of this somehow? The episode slowly answers many of them, but many loose ends are left for the viewer to process and ponder. There's no need for music or anything else in this episode to distract the viewer, as everything that's being said sucks in your attention like nothing else, as you want to find out even more about what the fuck is going on. This is expectation subversion at its finest, challenging our worldview and building anticipation for what's to come later down the line. With that being said, let me tell you the real reason why Season 2 is so fucking amazing. Somehow, someway, Mushoku Tensei is able to take a degenerate concept that you would think would have no substance, like curing Rudius' erectile dysfunction, and still bring genuine emotional payoff through it. At first, Rudius' ED is treated as a gag, one that would be laughed off by the viewers, and one that you would expect to move on from. But when the show's direction starts being dictated by what we thought was a cheap one-off gag, of course we're going to question the show's writing a bit. But as the show continued to display Rudius' ED as a problem that genuinely impeded on his mental health and life quality, we begin to understand and empathize with him, even if his objective is as comedic as getting a hard-on. And in one of the best scenes in Season 2, I never thought the day would come where I'd cry to an anime where the main character gets an erection, but you learn something new every day. The show had the ability to make something as degenerate sounding as fixing Rudius' ED into a genuine and emotionally significant ending, something I've never seen any other anime do. The parallel that this scene drew with Rudius and Eris' scene in Season 1 was so simple yet so effective. Sylphie came back and Eris didn't, breaking Rudius out of his developing distrust in women and showing him what true love feels like. Eris' scene being the one to cause this erectile dysfunction ordeal in the first place, and Sylphie's scene the one to end it. I mean, it's just perfectly written, and I couldn't have asked for a better ending. Yeah, I like Season 2.
なぜこの笑顔を見ると胸が高鳴るのだろうか。